morning, everyone. Today I'll be starting our presentation by looking at the historical background of curriculum development. We will explore why the field of language teaching needed to change the focus from simply finding the best method to developing a more comprehensive curriculum approach. We will cover three key areas: the limitation of older methods, the changing language needs in Europe that sparked this evolution, and the rise of crucial new approach called English for specific purposes. For a long time, particularly in the 1950s and 60s, the language teaching profession was focused on methodology. It was believed that to meet learners' needs, we just needed a better and more scientific teaching methods. There were two dominant methods in that era. First is situational language teaching in Britain, and the audiolingual method in the United States. Situational language teaching focused on structural syllabus with graded vocabulary. The classroom sequence was typically presentation, practice, and production. The audiolingual method was heavily influenced by behaviorism, viewing language learning as habit formation through repetition. The techniques relied heavily in the repetition of dialogue and pattern practice to make language use automatic. However, there was a problem. These methods were largely about how to teach without much consideration for why a student was learning the language in the first place. This brings us to our second point by the 1970s. It became clear that a one-size-fits-all method was not enough. The language teaching revolution had taken little account of the situation or motivation of the learners. A major catalyst for change came from Europe. The Council of Europe, aiming to remove language barriers, recognized for cooperation and unity, a more effective approach to language learning was needed. This led to critical questions being asked. Which languages are necessary for our community? Does everyone need the same skills or the same level of command? This was a significant shift. Instead of starting with a method, the focus moved to starting with the needs of society and the learners themselves. This was the beginning of a move away from syllabus design based on method towards curriculum approach. Finally, this new focus on learners' needs led to the emergence of the languages for specific purposes movement. ESP begins as practical response to very clear needs. For example, preparing a non-English background students for university studies, teaching English for specific jobs like engineers, doctors, or business professionals. It also helping immigrants learn the language needed for specific job situation. The key difference of ESP is the starting point. Instead of teaching general English, an ESP course is designed to help students carry out a particular role. As Pauline Robinson stated, the measure of success for an ESP student, for example like a hotel waiter, is whether they can perform convincingly as a hotel waiter in English, not just whether they can pass a general English exam or not. I think that's all from me. Let's move to the next presenters.
Hello everyone, as a fellow 7th semester students, we all know how important it is to understand the foundations of language teaching. Today, I'm going to share some key information about needs analysis and the emergence of communicative language teaching, or CLT. Let's begin with needs analysis in English for specific purposes, or ESP. After World War II, English became a global language for business and academia, leading to huge demands for courses. However, learners' needs were changing. They needed English for specific, practical purpose, not just for academic mastery. Needs analysis is the process of figuring out what a learner actually needs to do with the language. For an ESP student, the goal isn't just to master the language for its own sake, but to use it in a particular role, like a doctor or an engineer. This analysis ensures the course is tailored to their specific career or academic needs. Before CLT, the focus of language teaching was finding the best methods. Methods like the audiolingual methods were popular, but they often neglected a crucial element: the learner's actual needs and motivations. By the 1970s, this realization led to a major shift. The field moved away from sole focus on methodology and started a reevaluation of language teaching policy. This is when CLT emerged. It wasn't just a new method, but a whole new approach that put the learner's communicative needs at the center of curriculum design. Communicative competence versus grammatical competence. This is a key distinction that help us understand the shift to CLT. Think of it this way: grammatical competence is about knowing the rules of language it's the ability to construct grammatically correct sentences, which was the main goal of earlier structural-based teaching methods. These methods believed language learning was about forming habits through repetitions and pattern practice. In contrast, communicative competence is the ability to use the language effectively in a real-world situation. It's not just about what you know, but about what you can do with the language. This is a much broader concept that focuses on meaning and use, not just linguistic form. A great example of the shift to CLT is the rise of the notional or functional syllabus. Unlike a traditional grammatical syllabus organized around grammatical items, like teaching the present tense than the past tense, a functional syllabus is organized around what people do with language. This could include things like expressing opinions or making requests. A famous example is the Council of Europe's threshold level syllabus. In short, this type of syllabus is a tool for developing communicative competence because it focuses on the practical use of language in various communicative situations. It reflects a more comprehensive view of language use rather than just its form. I hope this helps us better understand this foundational concept in our language teaching journey.
Hello everyone, my name is Linda Sari with last student number is 010. Now that we understand why course planning is important, let's look at how we get started. In this session, we will focus on the very first step, laying the foundation and determining the content of the course. The first and most important step is to develop a course rationale. This is a brief written description of the reason and basic nature of the course. The course rationale answers a BK question. Who is the course for? What is it about? And what kind of teaching and learning will take place in this course? The course rationale is typically a 2 to 3 paragraph statement that provides a justification for the type of teaching and learning that will occur. Its purpose is to guide the planning of the various course components, provide focus, and ensures consistency in the course values and goals. Next, we need to describe the entry and exit level. To plan an effective language course, it's essential to know the level at which the program will begin and the level that students are expected to achieve by the end. For this purpose, a more detailed description is needed than general categories like elementary or intermediate. We can use information from international proficiency tests like TOEFL or IELTS or tests designed specifically for the program. One common approach is to identify performance or proficiency levels on a scale. An example is the ACTFL proficiency guidelines, which provide a series of tiered description for speaking, listening, reading, and writing abilities. Alternatively, we can use band descriptors like those found in the IELTS exam. Once the foundation is solid, we move on to one of the most fundamental issues in a course design. The choosing course content. Decision about content reflect our assumptions about language and language learning. The content of a writing course, for example, could be organized by grammar, function, topic, skill, process, or text type. Information from a needs analysis is a primary source, but ideas can also come from relevant literature, exciting published materials, or consultation with teachers and specialists. This process often begins with brainstorming initial ideas. After that, these ideas are reviewed and refined by questioning whether all suggested topics are necessary, if there is enough time to cover them, and if the topics will enable students to achieve the desired learning outcome. Finally, we need to determine the scope and sequence of the course. Scope relates to the breadth and the depth of the materials, while sequence relates to the order in which topic will be present. The sequence of material can be based on several criteria, simple to complex. Easier material is taught first. Chronological material is ordered according to a real-world sequence of events. Based on need, material is ordered according to when students are most likely to need outside of the classroom. Prerequisite learning material is taught as a foundation for a later learning step. Spiral material is recycled periodically to provide learners with repeat opportunities to learn. By understanding and applying this basic step, we will have a strong foundation for designing a course that is effective and well structured. Now, I will hand it back to my friends. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Samadani with my last student number is 009. Here I will discuss about traditional syllabus frameworks that serve as the blueprint for learning. We'll explore them in detail so you better understand how to choose and use syllabus in teaching. A syllabus is a systematic plan or guide for learning. It outlines what a student need to learn, the learning goals, the material, and how to assess them. When choosing a syllabus, we must consider the learning objective, the needs and characteristic of the student, and the learning context or situation. First, there is a grammatical syllabus. It focuses on sentence structure and grammar rules, such as learning simple past tense or present continuous. This syllabus is easy to organize and has complete material, but it is often criticized for not emphasizing real life language use. So it's less suitable for natural communication. And the second, the lexical syllabus focuses on teaching words and phrase commonly used in everyday life, like make a vacation or take a break. The goal is to help students understand and use natural, common vocabulary in communication. Third, the functional syllabus centers on language function, such as how to apologize, give advice, or ask for help. For example, students learn to say, I'm sorry, or could you help me? This syllabus very practical and fits real communication needs, but it can be challenging to organize the material logically and truthfully. And the last one, the situational syllabus is based on real life situation such as a language used at the airport, hotel, or restaurant. This method motivates students because they learn language in context they will actually encounter. However, not all situation can be included, so sometimes the material feels incomplete. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ambagus Falanova with the student ID number of 011, and I will continue our discussion by talking about modern types of syllabi and how they are organized into a complete course structure. First, we have the topical or content-based syllabus, which is organized around specific themes or content areas such as health or technology. This makes language learning more meaningful because it is linked to real-life topics. Second, the competency-based syllabus, where the focus is on real-world abilities like giving presentation or doing job interviews. Next is skill syllabus. This type focuses on specific language skills such as skimming, scanning, or note-taking. It helps students not only learn the language but also develop strategies to become more effective learners. Then uh, there is task-based syllabus. Here, learning through tasks, for example, solving a puzzle, reading a map, or working on a group project, this approach encourages students to use the language actively. Moving on, the course structures. Courses are usually divided into instructional blocks like modules and units. This makes the course easier to follow steps by step. And finally, there is scope and sequence plan, which acts as a summary of the entire course. This scope shows what will be covered, while the sequence shows in the order in which the lesson will be taught. With all these elements combined, we can design a complete and effective course that is well structured and aligned with learning goals.